Chris Parry here from Equity Guru. How you doing? Good to see you. Sorry my hair's a bit big right now. I got caught in the rain. All you baldies out there, you can just keep being jealous. Listen, today I want to talk to you about uranium, specifically 3 little uranium explorers that I like a lot. I think that they have great prospects, great progress, and great partners. It's a triple P. Before I get into those, though, I want to tell you why uranium to me is a good thing. Now, I'm a lefty, guilty as charged, and many in the investment world point to me and use that as a negative. I don't think it is. I am all about profits, but I want those profits not to be at the expense of people and the planet. I also think that long-term profits are better than short-term profits, and that we can be profitable while still leaving a decent planet for our kids. So, hey, why uranium, I hear you ask? Isn't nuclear energy a pretty scummy business? Yes, if it was 1970 and you're in the Ukraine, 100%. Or if it was 2010 and you're building nuclear power plants on an earthquake fault, sure, not great. But, you know, hey, we don't generally do that anymore. Generally speaking, nuclear power plants are being built in areas that are much safer without 1970 Soviet technology and with a lot of safety levels built in along with redundancy. So a meltdown is a much less likely thing to happen than it would have been back in the day. The industry's just moved a long way past where those things would happen. And to illustrate that, you know, modern battleships, aircraft carriers have nuclear power plants built into them. You know, so like if you could put a nuclear power plant on a boat that might be blown up by a stray missile at any point and still be comfortable that it's not going to be a catastrophe, that's good enough for me to think that we should have them all along the north of Canada. So we look around us right now and we see from all sorts of factors that energy is expensive. The Saudis, whenever they wake up on the wrong side of the bed, suddenly OPEC's production goes down and prices go up. The Russians keep believing that you know, they're in the 1700s and that they can just decide to take over whatever part of Europe they want, and that's causing problems. But along the way, with all the energy increases and with all the detriments of standard legacy forms of energy, coal gives us black lung, gas apparently gives our kids asthma, oil, we know what happens with that. But even the good stuff like wind energy only really benefits us when the wind is blowing. Solar, same thing. It only really benefits us when the sun is out and in places where the sun comes out. Otherwise, you need big batteries to take off the excess and hold it for later. And we just don't really have that at this point in time. So what are we going to do to meet the growing energy demand when we're all buying non-Elon Musk electric vehicles? Glad you asked. Nuclear. Nuclear is the obvious way. It's scalable. It is clean. It is not carbon heavy. All you got to do in order to run it properly is have a supply of uranium. Now, this is where it gets a bit interesting because there's plenty of uranium in the world. You don't have to go very far to find uranium. The problem is in finding uranium in places where it's accessible, i.e. not at the bottom of a lake or not at the bottom of 10 billion tons of soil, and in grades high enough that it's actually worth doing economically. So that sort of really runs the rule across a bunch of different places where you could find uranium. Same as lithium. There's a lot of lithium around. It just might not be economic to get to it. But in order to get to the uranium in a way that makes sense, you really need to have infrastructure. You need to have a jurisdiction that isn't controlled by AK-47s. You need to have it close to where it's needed. So Canada's the perfect spot for it, man. And we've got a large amount of Canadian uranium exploration going on right now in the Athabasca region. And there are 3 companies out there that I really like. Now, they're not 3 companies that are producing uranium, right? They're not pumping out yellow cake and putting it on ships to go around the world. They're early stage. Now, why do I like early stage companies? If you're a producing company worth $2.5 billion market cap, in order to get to a $5 billion market cap, which is what I need in order to get a double on my share price, you need to do a shit ton of business right? You can't just go out there and say, hey, we streamlined operations, we got an extra 7% production. That's not going to get you to a double. On the small side of things, if you're a $10 million company, you're a 4-cent stock, and you put out a couple of good news releases, you can go from 4 cents to 8 cents, and I've got my double, right? I don't have to change the world. I don't have to become an international player. I've just got to see some progress, and that little $5 million company is suddenly a $10 million company. So I like the little guys. But when I'm looking at little mineral explorers, it's kind of like looking at a maiden handicap horse race. Now, I don't know if you know anything about horses, but generally speaking, when people train horses for racing, the first race they go out in will be the maiden handicap. And the maiden is called that because they've never been out before. These are horses with no form guide. You don't know what they're going to do. It's a mystery. People will back a horse based on the color of the jockey's shirt or the lucky number or which box they're coming out of. But you don't really have much more information than that. Now, of the 10 horses in that race, the 3 that come first, they're going to progress to the next level up. They're going to upgrade to the next level with the other horses that have a bit more form, right? A bit more success, where people can see that horse is worth backing. And then if they win there, then they go to the next level and the next level. And then finally they're up into the Grand Nationals and the sweepstakes, et cetera, et cetera. So if you're looking at exploration as a horse race, your $3 to $20 million market cap companies, they're maiden handicaps, right? They've put a little tape around a bit of land. They've cordoned it off and said, this is our company. There's a sign and a cyclone fence, and that's pretty much it. Maybe a couple of tents or a trailer or the beginnings of a road, but that's 90% of your mineral explorers. Now, half of those will never get to that point even. They'll raise some money. They'll talk about doing some drilling. Then they'll go play golf, and then they'll be a year gone, and they'll, oh, well, I guess we should go raise some more money, do a bit more drilling, play a bit more golf, rent a couple more office chairs, get my kid on social media. That's 90% of the mineral explorers out there. And you don't want to be putting your money on those because those are just, they're holding patterns. They're waiting for something to happen. But the other half, they're actually doing the money, doing the work. Those guys are interesting. Now, they'll put a couple of drills in the ground. They'll fly a helicopter over and take some pictures with an electrometer. They'll walk over the property and pick a few rocks out of the ground and send them to the lab. And if they get one back that shows, hey, you know what? There's a lot of ore in that rock. That could be a doubling moment, right? Just the one drill bit into the ground that comes out with a lot of shiny. That is a company making moment at that level. So if you're going to be in at that level where, hey, the risk is high, they may come up with nothing, but they also may come up with something. If you're going to run that risk, if you're going to take that chance and get the potential of multi-bagger returns, for me, this is the level you want to be at. Now, in order to mitigate your risk, you got to put a few things into the equation. You don't want to just be backing anybody because there's a lot of stories out there, a lot of guys out there that have never done anything. But there are also guys out there that have a track record of making these properties advance. Now, there are 3 companies in the uranium space that I like a lot. I like them a lot for a couple of reasons. One, and to be fully upfront, we're doing business with them all. They're clients of ours. Now, to me, what that tells me is they are prepared. They understand what we do, right? That we're going to go into their business. We're going to kick around all the rocks. We're going to talk about the negative and the positive, and we're going to let people make their own mind up. We don't just mindlessly promote. The fact that all 3 of these companies are happy to do that, they're happy to do a deal like that, when we might come in and say, not right now. This isn't the time. And that they're okay with that speaks volumes to me about their intent. A lot of times when we talk to companies about maybe working together and we say, by the way, if you miss, if you do something wrong, if you don't fulfill your promises, we're going to be the first ones to talk about it. A lot of companies back quietly out of the room, which is great for us. It's a self-filtering process, right? We don't have to attach ourselves to douchey companies. The companies that say, I'm good with that. I got no problem with that. You can come right into the boardroom. You can see exactly what we're doing. I like those companies because those guys have confidence that in 6 months' time, 12 months' time, they are going to have progressed their company to a valid and notable extent, and that will be reflected on the stock price. They're not scared of having us in under the kilt. I've got to find a different phrase that means the same thing but isn't quite so graphic. Okay, so 3 companies. Azincourt Energy is our first. AAZ is the ticker symbol. Now, I like Azincourt for 2 reasons. One, when they should have rolled back their stock a year and a bit ago. They did. And they didn't hide it. They didn't do it all of a sudden when no one was looking. They didn't do it over the new year. They came out and said in advance, we're going to roll back the stock. We've just got too many shares out. Doesn't help us in any way, shape, or form. So we're going to roll back. It was a $40 million company at the time. Now, they know that when they do that, there are people out there that are going to say sell, 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 because rollbacks always go down. When you sell, 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 you're making the rollback go down. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. So I look for rollbacks, right? I look for a company worth $40 million that's going to roll back and get a responsible amount of stock out there in the open and be 75% off a month later. I'm in on that stuff, right? Let's ride it all the way back up. And right now, Azincourt is at that place, has been for about the last 6 months because, you know, the market's not been great. You can't necessarily go out there and waste your good news in a market where nothing gets rewarded. So Azincourt has sat back a little bit, taken its bumps, had a little bit of, a rocky road, but a company that you could have bought for 21 cents effectively 6 months ago progressed along 6 months, and now you can buy it for 6 cents. And they've got cash in the bank, so they're not going to run out of money. They've got enough cash to go and do their drilling, and they've got big partners. So I like that. I also like the fact that the CEO is Alex Clement, who's been in this deal for a while now. Now, at any point, he could have said, you know what, this is tough. I'm getting a bit shit on by some of the investors. Things aren't really rolling for us. Uranium market is down. Apologies. Maybe I'll just go ahead and get a gold deal or a lithium deal. A lot of guys do that, right? They just tap out and say, this is too hard. I'm going to go do one of those deals that's the flavor of the month. Clement hasn't done that. He said, this property is important. This property is a good property. I've had a lot of people looking at it. I've raised a lot of money with it. And I've put my legacy on the line with a lot of people that I care about, investor-wise. And I want to see this through. Respect to Alex Clement, because that is the way a man should behave in the public markets. I've dealt with him for a number of years on this and another company. And when things go dark, as they sometimes do on the street, nobody has been more upfront with investors and the press than Alex Clement. So I will always respect that. He is a long-time associate of ours, and at 5 cents, 6 cents, Azincourt is a fucking bargain. $14 million market cap for a company that was $40 million 6 months ago, with no negative news to speak of. Number two in the small uranium explorers that may go double list is Standard Uranium. Now, Standard Uranium is a little further along than Azincourt, but Standard Uranium is really interesting in a couple of ways. And one is they walk around with video cameras. Man, if you go to their website, you will find video upon video upon video explaining macroeconomics of uranium, explaining technical things about their property, explaining, just walking around the property and showing you what they do. Quite frankly, they're doing exactly what I would do if I was running a mining explorer. I would never stop the cameras rolling. I'd be streaming from the drill. I'd be showing you exactly what we get into. You know why many mining explorers don't? Because many mining explorers have nothing going on, whereas Standard Uranium is out there doing the work in the cold, in the very, very, very cold. John Bay is the CEO over there. He's a stand-up guy. I've talked to this guy many times. He was involved in a deal a couple of years back that went sideways, and of all the people involved in that deal, John was the one that stood in front of every single investor and explained the situation honestly and openly, and made sure that his reputation was strong regardless of what was happening at the greater company. Again, like Clement, a stand-up guy, and those guys you don't find many times on the public markets. I'll stick with them every time. So when John Bay tells me, yeah, I've got something here, as he did a year and a half ago with Standard Uranium, I've watched and watched and watched, and finally, it seems like this is the moment. Same with Azincourt. This is the moment where Standard Uranium starts to pick up the ball and charge through the middle. Share price on Standard Uranium is getting to an interesting place. It was 6 cents at the beginning of this month. It is at 9 cents right now. So you're up 50%. Right there, no news at all. Just a couple of people buying in, and suddenly you're up a 50% mark. Interesting. Now, Standard Uranium is right up in there in the same area as Azincourt. They're a little bit more advanced, and the market cap on Standard Uranium, if I'm right, is 15 million. So pretty close to what the Azincourt guys are, but maybe a little bit further along. Maybe Azincourt would dispute that. Finally, the third one of the batch, and these guys are well further advanced than the other two, and in fact are often spoken of in the same breath because they have some partnerships in place, and this is Skyharbour Resources. Skyharbour Resources is run by Jordan Trimble, whose family has been in the markets for, I don't know if his dad would think Paul of me saying so, but for decades. Jordan, when he took over Skyharbour, there are a lot of people who are like, look at Babyface over here with his exploration company. Okay. If anything, Jordan Trimble has shown over the last several years that he is a major player in this space. He's got respect. He talks at all the conferences. He understands his business. He's never done a deal that he'd be ashamed to buy. He's always come in with an open palm and an honest word, like the other two that I'm speaking of, a straight up guy who doesn't hide when things aren't going right. The fact that all three of these guys at the same time have come to Equity Guru and said, time to tell our story, tells me a lot. They're not just players. They're the players that I trust most. When you're in those maiden handicaps and you're looking about what differentiates one horse from the next horse, it's generally the jockey. If you get the jockey that you trust, the jockey that you've seen in action at other places, maybe he hasn't won all the races, but put in a good run, that's something worth illustrating. And quite frankly, these three, for me, if they decided to join their companies up, I think that'd be amazing. Like if they decided to merge the three companies and just go hell for leather with that much brain power, honesty, and integrity, that company would be worth much more than the sum of its parts. I recently had a discussion with somebody in BC who I trust very much on the public market, somebody who I've done a lot of business with over the years and has always been really straight up with me, not even dealing in this industry right now. And we were talking about the general markets, and I said, what do you think about uranium? Do you watch uranium? And he was like, yeah, I've got my favorites. And I said, really? I'm gonna give you 3 ticker symbols. You tell me what you think of them. He said, okay. And the 3 ticker symbols that I've just mentioned, SYH, STND, and AAZ. The 3 ticker symbols that I mentioned to him, he said, those are the 3. Those are the guys that I'm already behind. I trust them, they know what they're doing, and they've got great properties. Of all the little guys, those 3. So, I'm in a position where obviously I talk to you guys, the investors out there, and I give my opinion. And I often have to say, look, full disclosure, these guys are clients. The fact that these guys are clients is something that is not a negative, right? It's not a thing that I'm talking about them because they're my clients. I got other companies I'm not talking about right now. These 3 are my clients because as a group, they all 3 have decided that early 2023 is the time when their story needs to be told, that the market is moving forward hard, that they're all ready to do their drilling and put the past behind them. And all 3 of them at the same time, within a couple of weeks of each other, called us up and said, I want to tell my story. I'm glad because of all the companies out there that I might sign on as clients, to sign on clients that you have an inherent trust and faith and track record with is the best thing. Like I go to sleeping like a baby at night. I don't have to worry like, who is this guy? What has he done? Am I being lied to? I know with these 3 guys, if they miss, it won't because they didn't try to hit. It will because that's just the way it is sometimes in the exploration game. But they all have properties that other people tell me are really interesting properties. So the fact that Standard Uranium's up 50% in the last couple of weeks, even Azincourt is up from 4.5 cents to 6 cents in the same amount of time. And Skyharbour, is dragging a little bit. By dragging, I mean is flat, right? Like this is a company that was 78 cents at the beginning of 2022. You'd now get it for half that. But in the uranium space, that's pretty standard, right? Over the last 6 to 8 months, pretty much everything has had downward pressure. But the talk right now is that this is where the rubber starts to hit the road. So getting in at Skyharbour at 36 cents right now, as I speak, makes it a $57 million company. And now they have got a lot more projects than the other 2 put together. They've got a lot of deals. They've got a lot of partnerships. They've got much bigger players that are doing the work for them. And those partnerships, those arrangements, those connections are, you could call it a prospect generator, but I think that gets tagged poorly. That gets tagged negatively when companies call themselves that. People sort of see it as being a quickie mart for mineral properties. That ain't it. Skyharbour's properties are all good properties. They're all in-demand properties that they have added value to by incorporating bigger partners. And those bigger partners trust Jordan Trimble to work with them and not make them look bad. This is a big deal. Now, to the other two, Jordan Trimble is that bigger player that they partner with that they won't make him look bad. Right, so I'm good on all three of these fronts. If you want a $10, $15 million company, Azincourt, Standard Uranium. If you want the $50 million company that's got a few more oars in the water, probably a little less volatile, Skyharbour. And you go above that, you're dealing with guys that are already producing or near to producing, and for me, the value is already gone. But that $10 to $50 million range, I can see doubles there. I can see doubles short term with good news releases, and I expect that those news releases are going to be forthcoming. All this is a long way of saying, if you're still with me here, congratulations. I should give you like a discount coupon for beer or something. But, more power to you if you're still listening. Bottom line here is uranium, I think, is in an upward trend. Green energy definitely is in an upward trend and will be for the next 20 years. And uranium is going to be at the core of that. And in terms of the environment, like people say, well, I don't know about nuclear energy, I care about the environment. Look, if you had 100 tons of uranium in your backyard, would you leave it there because it could be a playground for flora and fauna? Or would you want to get it out of there so that the flora and fauna wouldn't radiate? I kind of think that if you could get all the uranium out of the earth, your natural landscape is better off for it. Like, I don't want to walk along with a Geiger counter or pinging under my feet. So, obviously I'm being facetious, but the cold hard fact of the matter is that nuclear energy and uranium mining does a lot less damage to the planet than the copious number of oil wells and fracking that goes on. That is short-term profit, but eventually will end up going to zero. So for mine, I don't think that nuclear, you're not going to get 100 nuclear power plants going online tomorrow, but you're going to get them in the next 10 years. And so the companies right now that are exploring for uranium, there's still a few years of exploring left to go before they can realistically think about producing. That to me is the sweet spot. There's plenty of uranium right now for the uranium needs of the world. There won't be in a couple of years' time. And so these guys, I think, are going to be right in that sweet spot. Standard, STND, Skyharbour, SYH, Azincourt. Azincourt. AAZ.